I'm your host, Daddy McDuke. I'm joined as always by John the Brain Sheeran. And we are here to break down the latest Bengals news. And John, people have it in for the Bengals. They don't want to see Joe Burrow with T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. They don't want to see it anymore. They're afraid, John.
They're done. I mean, it's been, what, like 5-10 years now? It seems like a while. But yeah, all good things must come to an end, I guess.
John, you have written an article on a2zsports.com/Cincinnati about this. Adam Schefter comes out and says, hey, no Jamar Chase, no T. Higgins at OTAs. Oh, the O, by the way, it stands for opinionated or optional. Optional, right?
Voluntary.
Voluntary.
The V is silent, yeah.
Okay. John, so here's the thing. He's like, they're not there. Uh-oh, what's going on? Are they going to have a team this year? What's going on? John, it is a nothing burger, as they say. Tell us why.
I mean, I don't like nothing burgers. I prefer something on my burger particularly, but I think you're on the right track there. It is voluntary OTAs, and the Bengals have 83 of their 87 players participating in said voluntary OTAs. The actual mandatory mini camp practices, that isn't for another 2 weeks as of this recording. The case with Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, though, which seems to be they are half of the players that haven't shown up. The other half are Trent Brown and Sheldon Rankins, notably two players that the Bengals signed to contracts back in March, right? So they are under contract. They got paid like not even 3 months ago. They're going to be on the team. They're just not there because they're doing their own work away from the team. They're on their own schedules, and they will report to the team when they report to the team in order to get paid for the upcoming season. That is also going to be the case with Jamar Chase, who, again, is working, I believe, in Texas. He's been in the Dallas area for the past month or so, working with his own guys and doing his own regimen. Something that he's done in the past, by the way. Like, he's been on his own offseason schedule. I don't remember the last voluntary practices that he's missed in the past, but it has happened before. He has been kind of on his own schedule. With T. Higgins, though, he requested a trade back in February, March, or whatever. It came up again during or right before the draft. He's doing the whole Jesse Bates thing where he's not going to show up until probably late August at the very earliest, right before the start of the regular season. He can't even show up until he signs his franchise tender, and we don't think that's going to happen until, again, late August, right before the season, in order so he can get paid. So both of those guys missing, again, voluntary practices are not the same thing, which for whatever reason seems to be what Adam Schefter thinks it is.
Yeah. I mean, look, let us be very clear here. Can I say this on the air, John? Sure. Adam Schefter is paid by the big money football teams, by your Cowboys, by your New England Patriots. These guys, the Giants, these teams are paying him a lot of money to say things that will sway things in their favor. And so when he went on the air last week and he was debating, he was saying, look, T. Higgins is going to make a lot of money next year. What, $30 million? John, that's ridiculous. T. Higgins, if he does not play this year, that's what he was saying. Schefter was saying, if he doesn't play this year, he's still going to make $30 million a year. That is ridiculous. If T. Higgins, the last version of T. Higgins we saw was what we saw last year, there's no way he's going to make $30 million next year. There's just no way. But Schefter was arguing, trying to say, hey, T. Higgins, don't play. Come play for one of the teams that, I am in their pockets.
You were reading between the lines a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, just a little.
Yeah. It's not the teams that have interest in what Schefter says. It's the agents, right? So insiders like Schefter, they get valuable information in order to break news stories, of course, from the individuals who are right in the center of those news stories kind of behind the scenes is the agents who are conducting all these businesses. It's why he was always at the front of announcing all of the deals that were negotiated by Athletes First and David Mulugheta. David Mulugheta obviously represents T. Higgins, so Mulugheta is telling Schefter what his side of the story is. Schefter wants that relationship with Mulugheta and that agency to persist, so he is going to say what the agent wants him to say. He's already been kind of caught in all this with the Washington football team back in the day when he was writing letters to Dan Snyder, the former president owner, calling him Mr. Editor, basically just saying what the interested party wants him to say. It's kind of how all this types of relationships and all this type of reporting works, and it's kind of how it's always kind of been. But particularly in recent weeks with Schefter, I'm not really sure what his deal is, but I think there's definitely some nuance here that someone who's on TV as consistent as him with a large audience and platform like him, he needs to be able to recognize and be able to differentiate these two situations. If Jamar Chase were to miss mandatory minicamp and were to not report to training camp on time, which if you're going to miss minicamp, of course you're going to miss training camp. There's no point in missing one without the other. He would not be able to accrue this upcoming fourth season. And even if he already has like the fifth-year option, if like the Bengals already signed that or whatever, he wouldn't be able to accrue this season upcoming. And you need 4 seasons accrued under your belt in order to hit unrestricted free agency. T. Higgins already has 4 seasons accrued in his NFL profile resume, which is why he will be able to hit free agency next year, which is why he can afford to hold out and not report to training camp. Jamar Chase is not in the same boat. So even if Jamar Chase is eligible for a contract extension, like Adam Schefter very pointedly put it out, it's not the same situation. Chase has no grounds to negotiate and use his leverage like that. It's apples and oranges.
Yeah. And yeah, that's perfectly said. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked to see Jamar Chase be a little cautious, like not doing the optional TAs, whatever that, and that kind of stuff, just to be careful, because you don't want to go into a contract year, with any sort of injuries, obviously. So, but John, the bigger story here is, it's true. We really don't know what T. Higgins is gonna do, but the understanding that we have from hearing from Zach Taylor and from T. Higgins is that he's going to be back. Now it might be right before the regular season. It might be. But he's going to be back, and I think that he's going to have a lot to prove, and he's going to come out aggressive. I think he's going to come out aggressive. He has a lot of competition now. We've seen Jermaine Burton has looked good. He's going to have to prove himself a little bit, and John, also, other news, Gesicki has looked good in training camp, right? So he's going to have to fight for it, and I think he's going to come out on top.
The title of this video is "Should the Bengals be worried?" And if the worry is if these guys have if they're not content with their current situations, or if they're worried about what this is going to do for the season, if these guys don't practice enough with the team, I think everyone can say that when Jamar Chase and T. Higgins are fully healthy, they are the two pieces aside from Joe Burrow that everybody can have confidence in them just being in the Bengals offense. Like, the offense completely runs through them because of their abilities. They have the most experience now working with Burrow, even if they are going to do some different things schematically with Burrow under center and whatnot. They are the most confident in those two individuals fitting in this offense. Like, they can just show up whenever, and there won't be any rust with them. Like, maybe they'll take a couple practices to get reacclimated and whatnot, just because they're not superhuman, but they have the most experience and reps already baked in with Burrow, with this offense. Whenever they show up, they'll be fine, which is exactly what Zach Taylor relayed to the media. He was talking about, we have 4 guys here who aren't here, but everyone else is here, and attendance is fine, and we trust those guys. We know what they're about. They'll show up when they need to show up, and everything will be okay.
Yeah, I think so. I think the passing game will be fine. The special teams is another story, John, because I saw a clip from Dan Horde. He posted of the special teams, and with the new rules, nobody seems to know what to do. They're just standing around until the guy catches the ball, and then they start running.
So that's by design. Okay. I don't know if you read the new rules, but you're not going to see.
I didn't even read the tweets.
That figures. But so the ball's going to be in the air, right? And it's only going to land between the 20 and the 0-yard line. So it's not going to go in the end zone anymore. And if it goes out of bounds, obviously it's a penalty. So as soon as the returner receives the kickoff, then the kickoff coverage and the kickoff return units, then they can start going at each other. So it'll kind of be like a weird type of play from the line of scrimmage where you have obviously the offense and defense blocking and try to penetrate the blocks and whatnot, and almost be like an elongated running play where everything is a standstill, like it is like a play from the line of scrimmage, but it's a way to make sure that kickoff returns are still in the game. They still matter. You can still break off a long one and give your team great field position, but with the lack of guys running full speed from 50 yards away from each other, it decreases the chance of like high-speed collisions and whatnot, and it allows that play to continue living on.
So what kind of returns do you expect, John? Do you think we're going to still have 70-yard returns, or?
Yeah, because we've seen these exact kickoff returns in the XFL already. Like, that's where they really tested this out in the beginning. And one of the first returns, I think, when they started doing that, was a kickoff return for a touchdown. That may have been from the case of these guys having practiced it a lot, and it was like the first year of doing it, and a guy just found the seam. But I think if you block it correctly, and obviously with everything now in a more controlled setting, and you don't have guys flying, down at each other, you can scheme up creative types of runs and blocking schemes. And I think special teams coordinators will be able to get really creative to really spring their guys open. And if you have a talented enough return man, which the Bengals hope that they have in maybe Charlie Jones or Chase Brown, I think you'll definitely see some explosive returns for sure.
Yeah. I would like to see that. I would like to see the return game take a little bit of the pressure off of the Bengals. By the way, did you happen to see the new running back that the Cincinnati Bengals have that they signed?
Zach Moss?
Yes. Did you happen to see there was an image or a video of him with his shoulders? Did you see the shoulders, John?
I did not see the shoulders.
Very big shoulders. They were like poking out at the top. I didn't know shoulders were supposed to do that.
He wasn't wearing pads. It was just his actual shoulders, right?
His actual shoulders were poking out at the top with the muscles. And it's like, imagine him poking, running, just bashing his head into you, and then you get the shoulders, the shoulder bones or the shoulder muscles sticking into your eyes. I think he's going to be effective.
Universe. Like, instead of Popeye's forearms to get really big, like his shoulders just bulge out.
Let me try to find that. But yeah, I'm really excited about the running game, taking some of the pressure off of Joe Burrow. And now this special teams, who knows? Maybe Charlie Jones could do something. John, I have to say though, we're talking about the secondary is still a lot to figure out. A lot of people are saying, hey, I think someone asked a question on, I think it was maybe Ace Boogie, was like, have we ever seen a safety convert to a cornerback in the NFL? That was a good question, because at the elite level, John, I don't know if we've had that. Because corner, generally, if someone starts in the league as a corner, that's because they're the most athletic, the fastest and all that. He started as a safety, didn't work out. Now they're moving into corner, which I know he's more familiar with that position, but still. Are we in panic mode about the first round pick from last year?
I mean, if you want to be in panic mode now, like, that probably should have started when they first announced his position switch back in the spring, and when it was alluded to even before then. I think it is very dangerous to expect him to be a high-level player at a position that he's never played extensive snaps before. There's a difference between lining up against slot receivers, mirroring those types of route concepts, working against the line of scrimmage in that alignment, compared to better athletes on the outside with different release packages. You're not having as much help over the top in terms of safety help. Of course, the Bengals defense does a great job when their safeties are competent back there, that they can usually cover those deep zones, and that's why you have guys like Eli Apple have career years out there. So I think Dax has the length and the natural quickness to theoretically be an outside cornerback. It's just a matter of giving him as many reps right now to see where he's at, and to give him a nice base level of experience when he goes into the preseason. That's when he's going to get a ton of snaps and a ton of reps against very vanilla offenses, probably against a lot of backup receivers. So even then, we're not going to have a great grasp at where he is in terms of competence when he has to go up against the top receivers in the league if he were to play significant snaps in the regular season. But the athletic profile is definitely there. The lack of experience, though, is jarring, and it would be one thing if he was like a career safety who was a safety in college and became a safety in the NFL, and for whatever reason he sucked at the position, and then they're moving him to corner. He was a slot cornerback, an overhang defender, if you will, who moved to safety in the NFL, and now he's a boundary cornerback. So this is a very, very, an even more unique conversion than I think even like that original question posed it to be. So he has experience lining up close to the line of scrimmage. It's just a slightly different, alignment of responsibilities being on the inside and the outside as a cornerback.
Yeah. Well, look, he's a very good-looking guy, and I can see why he was able to, win over the Bengals and their hearts. So I hope that he finds a role on the team. But really, John, I got to say, the Zach Moss guy with the shoulders, I think this could be this, take a lot of pressure off the defense. And so I have the clip. I was able to get the clip for you.
I'm sure when you signed here, there was an expectation that you're signing with a team that's ready-made to be a contender. You've seen the roster. You've been around this group. I know Jamar and T aren't here.
John, did you see how it's like there's an extension of his body, that the upper shoulders? It's like do you see what I'm saying? Have you ever seen anybody's shoulders do that before?
Yeah, I have. I don't think those are particularly shoulder blades that you're looking at. I think it's another type of muscle. I don't know if it's a lat or something like that, but no, those muscles exist. I was picturing something completely different when you were describing it, like almost like it was out here where it was kind of almost looks like a cape going on. But no, I think it's a very natural muscular progression to kind of go into the neck like that.
Well, if it's natural, why don't I have it?
Well, there's a lot of reasons why. I think one, you're not an NFL player, and two, you're 3'6" on a good day.
Yeah. Well, okay. I'll take it, John. I don't really think there's much more Bengals news to talk about today, unless you have anything.
Nothing other than this. If you were to rank all the backup quarterbacks in the NFL, where do you think Jake Browning would fall in that ranking, Daddy?
I think he's probably a top 10 backup quarterback.
Top 10.
I think so,
Gilberto Manzano, Sports Illustrated, thinks he's a little bit better than top 10. He thinks he's number 1 over the likes of Joe Flacco, Gardner Minshew, Michael Penix Jr., who just got drafted by the Falcons. Isn't it so crazy that this time last year we were talking about Trevor Siemian versus Jake Browning as a competition to be backup quarterback? Jake Browning comes in. No one has any faith in him to do anything right. He kind of fails in his first start, but then shows a lot of competency in an adjusted scheme. And all of a sudden now, in 2024, the Bengals have arguably the second best quarterback in the NFL and the best backup quarterback in the NFL. How things have changed.
It is interesting, and I got to give credit to Zach Taylor and the coaching staff, because Jake Browning always had that fire. He always had that drive to be good, but he was just kind of messy. He was a little sloppy. And they got him under control, and at times he let it rip and it was good. At other times he was a little too conservative, or he was too aggressive, and against the Pittsburgh Steelers he threw like 2 interceptions in the first 5 passes or something. But he's not you can't say that he's someone you want to start a lot of the games, but we now know that if, God forbid, Joe Burrow misses time, it's very clear that a healthy Jake Browning is better than a hobbled Joe Burrow, and that is something I don't even think the coaching staff knew early last year. So,
no, I don't think they did either, because Brian Callahan was on a podcast recently, and he was talking about that first game where Jake wasn't very vocal about what he wanted. Like, he didn't have any specific recommendations for what the offense should be. He literally said, no, just continue as everything was normal. And then he completely crapped the bed against the Steelers in that first start. Then he was like, okay, I think we should probably do things a little bit differently. I'm going to tell you what I'm comfortable with. So now the coaching staff knows what works with him. He knows what works with him. So if they do have to go down that road again, they have a much better path and just a proof of concept of what can work with him at quarterback. And I think that's obviously extremely valuable, even if him as a quarterback hasn't really changed.
Yeah, I agree. And